Hi, friends, and welcome to the podcast by Ikramov Islam Bek, and we hope you enjoy the podcast.
5 research-based strategies for overcoming procrastination. Chances are that at this very moment you are procrastinating on something. Maybe even you are reading this article to do so. A while back, I took a year to experiment with every piece of personal productivity advice I could find. In becoming hyper aware of how I spend my time, I noticed something. I procrastinated a lot more often than I had originally thought. In one time log I kept, I found that over the course of 1 week, I spent 6 hours putting off tasks. And that is just the procrastination that was apparent from my time log. This got me thinking, why do we procrastinate even though we know it is against our best interests? How can we overcome it? Preferably without hating ourselves or the techniques we use in the process. To answer these questions, I spoke to researchers and spent time digging through dozens of academic journal articles. The advice I gathered became the foundation for part of my book, and fortunately, I discovered that a lot of it works. Why we procrastinate. One of the first things I learned that procrastination is a human condition. About 95% of people admit to putting off work, according to Pius Steele, author of The Procrastination Equation, and I would argue the remaining 5% are lying. As for the phenomenon of putting stuff off, it's a purely visceral, emotional reaction to something we do not want to do, says Tim Cycle, author of Solving the Procrastination Puzzle. The more average you find a task, the more likely you are to procrastinate. In his research, Cycle identifies a set of 7 triggers that make a task seem more average. Bring to mind something you are putting off right now. You will probably find that task has many, if not all, of the characteristics that Cycle discovered makes a task procrastination worthy. Boring, frustrating, difficult, ambitious, unstructured, lacking in personal meaning. On a neurological level, procrastination is not the slightest bit logical. It is the result of the emotional part of your brain, your limbic system, strong arming the reasonable, rational part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. The logical part of your brain surrenders the moment you choose Facebook over work or decide to binge another episode of House of Cards when you get home. But there is a way you can give the logical side of your brain the upper hand. When you notice an approaching showdown between logic and emotion, resist the impulse to procrastinate. Here are the best ways I have discovered in my research to do that. Reverse the procrastination triggers. Consider which of Cycle's 7 procrastination triggers are set off by an activity you are dreading. Then try to think differently about the task, making the idea of completing it more attractive. Take writing a quarterly report. If you find this boring, you can turn it into a game. See how many words you can crank out in a 20-minute time period. Or if you find a work task ambitious and unstructured, create a workflow that lays out the exact steps you and your team should follow each month to get it done. Work within your resistance level. When a task sets off procrastination triggers, we resist doing it. But just how resistant are we? Let's say you have to wade through a dense piece of research for an upcoming project. To find your resistance level, consider the effort you commit to that task along a sliding scale. For example, could you focus on reading for an hour? Now that period of time still seems unpleasant. What about 30 minutes? Shorten the amount of time until you find a period with which you are no longer resistant to the task, and then do it. Do something, anything, to get started. It's easier to keep going with a task after you have overcome the initial hump of starting it in the first place. That is because the tasks that induce procrastination are rarely as bad as we think. Getting started on something forces a subconscious reprisal of that work, where we might find that the actual task sets off fewer triggers than we originally anticipated.